Carving It Up is back tonight, ladies and gentlemen, with a ton to discuss in the world of sports and otherwise, starting in the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys, Micah Parsons, Jerry Jones. We got a trade request. Jerry's taking shots at Micah. Micah's taking shots at Jerry. What does this mean for the Cowboys moving forward? Also, Lakers sign Luka Doncic to an extension to stay with the franchise. What does it mean for the superstar? What does it mean for LeBron James' opportunity to stay with LA, to maybe go elsewhere? Also want to touch on, when I was gone, Jalen Hurts has taken a lot of crap the last few weeks, and it goes against a lot of what we define as elite traits in a quarterback. Touch on that. I'm just sick and disgusted with the Jalen Hurts criticism as of late. Stephen Colbert show got canceled. As y'all know, I'm a big fan of late night, big fan of the entertainment industry. Touch on that, what it means for Stephen, the late night show industry in general, and Hall of Fame predictions for 2026, some of the first-time eligible players. Looking forward to that. We got a loaded show on Carving Up Live, so drop the beat, baby. Here we go. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube and on Twitter. As always, I am Bryson Carver. It's been a minute. I have not done a show since Game 7 of the finals, so I hope all of you out there have been doing well. I certainly have. Just an opportunity that this last year was kind of wild with Disney and the college program, and just all kinds of last fall for me personally was just really hectic and whatnot. So I just needed a month of time off to take a breather. Obviously, we know summer's kind of that dead period for sports, but wanted to come back about a month ahead of football season, get this thing back ready to roll as we enter this last month with no football. Cannot wait. We're going to touch on that, obviously, to start the show. Get into the Micah Parsons trade request with the Dallas Cowboys. And listen, this seems to go beyond a contract dispute, and it's starting to get kind of personal related to Micah and related to Jerry Jones. Touch on that. Also get into Luka Doncic, who over the weekend, basically the second he became eligible, signed a 3-year, $165 million extension to stay with the Los Angeles Lakers. What that means for Luka and his standing amongst the great players in the league currently. What it means for LeBron. LeBron's probably going to stay a Laker. Touch on that in about 10 to 15 minutes or so. Other side of the break, the Jalen Hurts discussion that I have seen over the last 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, has driven me absolutely insane. And I've never been like a crazy Jalen Hurts stan or anything of that nature, but we are going against every single preconceived notion that we define that a great quarterback has. It's just being thrown at Jalen. Touch on that. Obviously, I touch on from time to time on this show, if I feel it's relevant enough, is entertainment, politics, whatever the case may be. Stephen Colbert's show got canceled. Not Stephen Colbert, The Late Show in general on CBS got canceled. What that means for the late night industry, what it means for Stephen, what it means as for the reason why it probably got canceled, or at least the overwhelming reason it got canceled. Touch on that. And Hall of Fame was this weekend. Shout out to all the inductees. Sterling Sharp's speech was fantastic. We got some first-time inductees for the 2026 Hall of Fame class, and let me tell you, it is a stacked class, an opportunity for those guys to get in the Hall. But it's great to be back. Looking at the comments, my man Alfred Parsons Jr., Metropolitan Report, by the way, subscribe to this show. He does a fantastic job. He says, the return of the Carve Master. That's a new one, Alfred. I appreciate that. Glad to have you back, brother. I appreciate that, Alfred. Long overdue. Yes, it is exciting to be back. And we're not in a restaurant anymore. Yeah, listen, when I was in Disney, I was at like a quick service at a resort for a while. The last month I was there, I was at the building that I stayed at, Flamingo Crossings, doing a show there. But now, back in studio, I was there for the last part of the playoffs. Before we get started, I do have to say this, though. It has been a shockingly good last month, especially since the last time I came to y'all for my Boston Red Sox since trading Rafi Devers. We just swept the Astros over the weekend, and a team out of the Bronx got swept too. See if it rings a bell.
Yankees lose.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Red Sox are the top wild card spot in the American League right now. 3 games back of Toronto for the AL East. Very, very exciting. Very exciting. So we'll touch on Red Sox, obviously, over the next few months. Hopefully, it looks like we're on a push to make the playoffs, even though we did virtually nothing at the deadline. But we're not here to talk about trade deadline. We're here to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. But first, well, it's fitting. I'm gone for a month and a half, and we're back talking about this team.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
That's right, the Dallas Cowboys. So it's a new year and a new contract dispute. So Micah Parsons superstar pass rusher for the Cowboys, is up for a new deal. He's played the first 4 years of his contract. He's looking for an extension. He's on, fifth-year option, wanting to get the bag in Dallas, understandably so. He's been one of the most productive players in the league as it pertains to pressure, sacks, the whole bit since coming into the NFL. And as we know, in Dallas, Jerry Jones, owner, general manager, sure likes to make a show when there maybe doesn't have to be one. We saw it last year with CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. I was fooled on the Dak thing. I genuinely, as the biggest Dak Prescott fan in the world, thought, man, Dak's going to leave. Dak's going to be free from this disaster. And then literally hours before the Cowboys' first game against the Cleveland Browns, Dak signs the biggest contract in Cowboys history, in NFL history, rather, for that matter. So Micah on Friday, and I've got the portions of the tweet in my hand right here on my phone. Micah goes on Twitter, goes on social media, and says, I'm out. I want out of Dallas. And essentially what he says in that is, I wanted to be here. I love being a Cowboy. I love what comes with that. I love teammates, all of it. But essentially, in other words, Jerry Jones negotiated with me in bad faith. Jerry Jones, during the offseason, trying to negotiate with me without my agent, which in the modern NFL, unless you're Lamar Jackson, you just want to represent yourself, essentially, that's some shady business. That's different than what we've seen with Jerry negotiating with Dak, with CeeDee Lamb, with Ezekiel, with other guys. And Jerry Jones was questioned about it. It was a long 16-minute presser. We're certainly not going to show you all of it, but about a minute clip here of Jerry talking about the Micah Parsons situation. Now, hey, guys, it's business as usual.
Again, no, that's negotiation. I've heard that so many times in my 30 years in the NFL about from not just players but agents, and of course we all understand contracts. We're under contract. That's what we're doing. We're looking at adjusting the contract, but we're under contract and we're in camp, and that's the way the rules are set up. But that is old stuff, 30 years of old stuff. Some of these issues we're hearing about trading, hurt backs, all that kind of stuff.
Do you think this relationship is salvageable?
I think the relationship is what it is. What it is. Period.
What is it?
What it is. Well, it's our relationship. I sat with him at the Big 8 to Big 12 championship. I sat with him at the Super Bowl. I like Michael.
So just to be
that's
clear,
one thing I would say to our fans: don't lose any sleep over it.
Don't lose any sleep over it. Nothing to see here. No big deal. We got it done with CeeDee Lamb last year. Got it done with Dak Prescott. I always get the deal done. And to Jerry's credit, he has. I mean, that's not entirely false. Like, can you think of the last time a Cowboy held out or there was a contract dispute and the Cowboy didn't get the deal? Again, thought it was going to happen with Dak last year. That wasn't the case. My gut tells me Micah's probably going to get paid. My guess is it gets smoothed over with Jerry negotiates with Micah's contract, and Micah ends up becoming the highest paid defensive player, or rather highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, upwards of $40 million per season. But again, first of all, per usual, so much of this could have been avoided this year. Like, I will defend Jerry and the Cowboys not signing Micah last year because they were negotiating with Dak and CeeDee Lamb. Get it. Totally understand. But in that span, Max Crosby got paid. TJ Watt got paid just last month. Myles Garrett got paid. 3 of the premier pass rushers in the NFL got the bag when he could have paid Micah ahead of time. Just like Jared Goff got a contract. And I believe Josh Allen got a contract last year. Lamar Jackson, like all of these guys. And then Dak Prescott got paid the highest. Trevor Lawrence got paid. Tua Tagovailoa got paid. Then you paid Dak. Listen, I don't think Jerry's a businessman. Jerry's a billionaire. Billionaires don't pay folks out of the goodness of their heart. That's capitalism. Like, that's good, bad, or indifferent. That's how the system works. And so, because folks have theorized, even I have on the show, does Jerry just want hey, I gave them the biggest contract in the history of their position at the time they signed it. Maybe, or maybe we were just overthinking this whole time. And it sounds harsh, but it's in observing Jerry over the years. I used to be a Cowboys fan. For those who don't know, I was a Cowboys fan when I was a little kid. My dad's a Cowboys fan, whole bit. And around 2020, I became a Dak fan when he was at Mississippi State. I've told the story many times. there's the contract situation with Dak. 2020, Dak, screws up his ankle. I'm like, okay, screw this franchise. Dak should have had a deal. And I've always rooted for the Cowboys as long as Dak is healthy. Became a Steelers fan a couple years ago. In observing Jerry over the years, and I'm not as qualified to surmise what I'm going to surmise as folks who have done it for decades, the Ed Warders of the world, folks like that. But this is an individual who, there's no other way to say this, but he's declining. By the way, he's a human being. They all do. Unless you're Bill Shatner, who just doesn't age. It's unbelievable. Everybody has some sort of decline cognitive once you get to a certain age. Jerry Jones is 82 years old. Jerry Jones has run the Dallas Cowboys for 36 years now. Can't believe it's been that long. This has been, you could argue Jerry is probably the face of the Cowboys in that span. Matter of fact, I would argue that. Hall of Fame owner, won the 3 Super Bowls in the 90s, Jimmy Johnson, he's been the GM the whole bit. There's no logic or reason, because you say, well, what about the press? All press is good press. Maybe. Is it worth pissing off maybe the best player in your team? Even if the contract does get signed. Now that's a strained relationship. Now that's a guy who, is not necessarily going to be motivated per se to hang around. Not that players necessarily hang around owners, but it could provide them potential future career opportunities. We know how lucrative it is to be a Dallas Cowboys quarterback and retire and be a broadcaster. See Troy Aikman and Tony Romo. But, and other guys like, Michael Irvin went on to have a good broadcasting career. Other guys like that. It is it's a flawed way of thinking. It's a behind the times way of thinking. It's like, we're good. Not necessarily. I mean, you're the billionaire. You're the one who's set for life, and your grandchildren or great-grandchildren are set for life because of your accomplishments, because of your net worth. Not the case for Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons, in all likelihood, will never be as rich as Jerry Jones. So I got to get taken care of while I can. And Micah, to his credit, and I give Micah a lot of love for this, and I think this is what players you're starting to see are starting to do. James Cook is doing this right now in Buffalo. Trey Hendrickson, to a lesser degree, is doing this in Cincinnati, where they're holding in. They're around the team. They're present. They are, seen but not heard from, so to speak. Micah Parsons is at Cowboys camp to avoid fines and whatnot. He's just not participating. Jerry Jones sort of alluded to it. Hurt backs, whatever the case may be. It is such a flawed way of doing business. And again, I'm amazed. And I think folks are finally coming to my side of the table because I've been on this for years, really since the start of Carving It Up back in October of 2019. This man is far and away, it is not even a discussion, the biggest obstacle that the Cowboys have had to overcome for the last nearly 3 decades since they've won a Super Bowl. We're coming up on the 30-year anniversary of their last Super Bowl winning season, 1995. They've had multiple coaches, multiple quarterbacks, lots of different names, faces, and numbers on the backs of the jersey. One constant, it has been Gerald Wayne Jones. And so, again, even if this deal gets signed next week, Micah becomes the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL, which based on his production, based on where the market is heading, he's probably worth that. Why did you feel a need for it to get here unless you're just slowing down? You're not the same dude you used to be. Because guess what? If we're all lucky enough to get to that age, we probably won't be either. Certainly physically and even cognitively speaking. I mean, crap, that was a discussion last year with the former president. Like it's a reality of aging and getting older. And so I just look at this whole situation. I'm like, what is the logic surrounding this? Micah, and it's not just a decline as it relates to how you're handling current contracts relative to the way the smarter organizations do it. The Detroit Lions of the world, the Kansas Cities, the Philadelphias, the Buffaloes, teams like that. It's now you're doing shady business. That we know of. You didn't do that with Dak. The negotiations were tense with Dak. That we know of. It never went here. Where Jerry's like, I had a handshake agreement with Dak, and doggone it, we're holding to it. Jerry has a right to do that as the owner and operator of the Dallas Cowboys. Micah Parsons also has the right and the opportunity, as does his agent, to say, wait a minute, why did you try and maybe offer me less money than I would have gotten otherwise? Agent's not in the room. And again, so much of contracts, people don't know this, is not just upfront money, average annual salary, guaranteed money. A lot of these, there's incentives involved. There's, as it relates to injuries. All of those things go into creating an NFL contract. And the fact is, Micah Parsons, like every single rookie basically in the history of the NFL, has never really had that much of a say over his rookie deal. The rookie salary just kind of is based on what it is on your position where you're drafted. The next contract, if you're, productive enough to get that second contract, that's where you and your agent have more of a say, have more negotiating leverage. And Micah's doing what he can to exercise that, and I commend him for it. Listen, I don't think Micah is in the class of the tier 1 pass rushers, the TJ Watts, the Myles Garretts, the Nick Bosas, the Max Crosbys, heck, even the Aiden Hutchinsons of the world, who I love. I would say he's at the top of tier 2. Bottom tier 1, top of tier 2. As it pertains to pressures, he's up there in that category. My issue is I haven't seen him be productive enough, A, in the postseason, B, against the elite left tackles in the NFL, against, or tackles in general, the Lane Johnsons in Philadelphia, the Trent Williams in San Francisco. I haven't seen that from Micah. Other than that, he's worth an extension to Dallas. Of course, the whole point of drafting is to get a guy like Micah Parsons. He produces, which he has, and you keep him. Or you move him. But why do you feel like you have to simmer the relationship, or not simmer, to destroy any relationship you had with him previously? Is Jerry delusional enough to think that it's just all going to be fine, even if this deal gets signed, that Micah's going to feel great about Jerry? We know one thing about Micah. He tells you what's on his mind. He keeps it real. It's such a flawed way of doing business, and it's the Dallas Cowboys way. So I'm amazed that they continue to still operate in this form and fashion. Got some comments. Alfred says the Cowboys will be making a mistake to not smooth things over with Micah. The Cowboys want your fan to back. They ain't getting it, Alfred. No chance. Who is a Cowboys fan is Patrick Brown. Shout out to Patrick. As a lifelong Cowboys fan since 1991, not surprised nor shocked by the circus surrounding my team. 30 years of shenanigans without sniffing a Super Bowl. When the president, emperor, king, VP, secretary, treasurer, owner, GM is running the show, it'll always be about him, not the team, of course. And it's just so unnecessary. Like, this is why, again, I liken it to a decline. What does he hope to accomplish by this? Does he think that if it doesn't happen, no one's going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys? Like, is that, which, by the way, maybe that's a legitimate fear because they obviously don't win to the level of the Philadelphia, the Kansas City. Heck, at least last year, Washington with the new ownership, Jaden Daniels, coaching staff, like they're obviously on the come up in some of the moves they made this offseason. We'll talk about them as this preseason goes out or it plays out and then into the regular season. But it's just, hiring Brian Schottenheimer, like what? Or how about another example? To me, the most shocking, and I really didn't get a chance to talk about this a ton on the show just because that was at the time I was moving to Florida and it was chaotic and whatnot. But when Mike McCarthy remains on the Cowboys, and I forgot what the deadline was. Was it like January 7th, 8th, something like that, to where they could move allow Mike McCarthy to interview with other teams like the Chicago Bears, for example. They wouldn't let him interview with the Chicago Bears, but then they let his contract run out. Like, what was the objective there? Were they trying to underhand McCarthy? Like, I thought he had a pretty good relationship with ownership. It just, nothing that they do makes sense. And I think we have got to start talking about them the way that we talk about the poorly run franchises, the Jets, the Browns. Like that's who they are. That's their identity. They're not a well-run organization. They haven't been in decades. And that's why they're not sniffing a Super Bowl. Regardless of talent, quarterback, coaches, star pass rushers, they're not sniffing that. And so I'll be honest, I kind of judge Dak for staying, not for taking the deal. Listen, who am I to tell a man not to take $60 million a year? What the heck? My point is he could have gotten that from other teams. So I know, listen, Dak grew up a Cowboys fan. He wanted to be, he wanted to be the quarterback that breaks the Cowboys curse. Like, that's noble. I respect it, but don't be loyal to the wrong things. I'm all about loyalty to the right things. That's not an organization you necessarily need to be loyal to. At least if the objective is to win. Speaking of an organization that's high profile, and maybe just as much so as the Dallas Cowboys. Los Angeles Lakers, they signed on Saturday Luka Doncic to a 3-year, $165 million extension. So Luka's locked in for the long term with the Lakers. So he's under contract, if you include this year, for the next 4 years. So he's their superstar for the future. This was what was going to be the case after they made the move for him back in February, what was the most shocking trade I think any of us have seen in sports. So on the Luka side of this, and in the time that I was gone, the Lakers got new ownership of the building with the Dodgers. I think actually that might have been during the finals. I actually might have talked about that briefly during the show. But new ownership coming into the picture. The Buss family isn't going to have as much as a say as they have. And I've often, it's funny, we just got done talking about the Cowboys. I've often compared the Cowboys to the Lakers with this sort of don't hire or consult with anybody who doesn't have Lakers purple and gold colored glasses on. Same with the Cowboys, metallic blue colored glasses on. Everyone Jerry Jones consults with has ties to the franchise, can't look at them objectively. Same case with the Lakers for years. It's the Rambis family. It's who's the GM? Rob Pelinka, who was Kobe's agent. Like everybody that's involved in any way, shape, or form has ties to the Lakers, whether they're that qualified for the job or not. That's what you see in Dallas as well. So I did give credit to the Lakers in bringing in new ownership, and I think it's going to do wonders for the franchise. I'm a Warriors fan, so I hate the Lakers. So, but that's objectively good news for LA, as is obviously Luka Doncic staying. So Luka is now I can't believe he's 7 years into his career now. Like he's an NBA veteran now. That's crazy how fast time flies. And I mean, you think this is a guy who a couple of years ago finished top 3 for MVP, led the Dallas Mavericks to an NBA Finals, was able to get a game. Numbers weren't that bad in the series, but the defense was. The efficiency wasn't quite there. Him and Kyrie went on a great run and obviously fell short to a better Boston Celtics team. He gets hurt. He's out of shape. That was a story for most of his career in Dallas. Luka's not in shape. Luka's not putting time in the weight room. Well, he's on the cover of Men's Health magazine, and it's like, holy crap, Luka looks amazing. He's ripped now. He was asked on the Today Show, are you on Ozempic? No, I'm just working out. And I think some credit does go to LeBron, and this is what I theorized along with many others when Luka was traded to the Lakers, where it's just being in proximity to a guy or with a guy who is the model for taking care of your body and being able to sustain excellent play for a long period of time in LeBron James had to have rubbed off on Luka. It didn't rub off on AD, but AD was never, again, AD is a great player. AD is a future first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. But we know AD does not have the killer instinct that a guy like Luka has. He's got that dog in him. There's no question. We've seen it in previous years at the Olympics, in the playoffs. He's got that. He'll trash talk anybody. He loves the moment. And so for Luka, I think he's the clear 4th best player in basketball. In this order, I go Jokic, Giannis, SGA, Luka Doncic. I mean, what Jokic does on a season-to-season basis is just, it defies logic. Players don't do that. He's unbelievable. Giannis, again, he just finished. I know the Bucks haven't had playoff success. They haven't won a playoff series in 3 years. You can't put that on Giannis. The guy is, I think, the first time that a guy has averaged 30 a game on 60% shooting back-to-back seasons ever. I could be wrong on that, but that's what Giannis has pulled off the last couple of seasons. He's been unreal the last couple of years. And we'll see what happens with his future in Milwaukee. SGA is the defending MVP, defending champion, had a great playoff run, and deserves, worst case scenario, that number 3 spot. And then I think it's Luka, whose stock definitely took a hit last year because he was out of shape, because of the trade, because of how Dallas and Nico Harrison seemed to go out of their way to shame him, to destroy his image because of, not taking care of his body. He drinks too much, smokes too much, doesn't care enough about basketball. And my takeaway was, well, okay, if that's him not caring about basketball, my gosh, wait till he does. So if he's as in shape as the Men's Health magazine seems to indicate, holy crap, we could be in for an MVP season from Luka, which, by the way, he's never won before. He's never won a league MVP before. He's come close. You can make a case he should have gotten it in 2024. I would have given it to Jokic, but you could have made a case for Luka. But we've seen in years past, he's been in the race. The numbers have been off the charts, hasn't quite broken through. So much of winning MVP is storylines. And if the narrative coming in is he's in shape, he's the new face of the Lakers now, there's still, I think, I got to admit to you, I still can't quite believe he's a Laker. And it's been 6 months since the deal went down. It's been a half year, and I still can't believe Luka is not a Maverick anymore. He's in LA. There's still the shock, the wear off with that. He had a rough playoffs against Minnesota. They attacked him every chance they got on the defensive end. He seemed to wear down worse than his 40-year-old teammate in year 22, LeBron James, did. And so there is pressure, I think, on Luka not to lead the Lakers to a title because they can do it. The Marcus Smart move was fine. Marcus is getting up there in age. He's an old, I think Marcus is like 31, 32, 33 years old. He's older. His body would tell you he's older than his age is, if that makes sense, just because of how he plays the game, physical, whatever the case may be. DeAndre Ayton is a good move. It's better than what they had at center, but we know he's emotionally unreliable. Ask Monty Williams in Phoenix. And in the case of Portland, they couldn't wait to get rid of him. And so some of the moves the Lakers have made have been fine. I've got no real qualms with it. I don't think they're as good as Oklahoma City. I don't think they're as good as Denver. I thought Denver had an amazing offseason with some of the guys they brought into the building. And so I would have them at kind of like the top of that tier 2 of contenders in the Western Conference with Golden State, with Minnesota, with teams like that. So for Luka, I think that the goal, the objective has to be, I got to win a league MVP. I'm too great. I'm one of the 4 best players in basketball. Jokic has 3. SGA's got 1. Giannis has 2. I'm in that class of those guys. My numbers say I'm with those guys. I got to have some hardware to back it up. And I've been to a finals, been to another Western Conference finals 2 years before that. I need to start having some hardware to show for my greatness. And I think he's going to do that. He's driven as ever. He's motivated to prove the Dallas Mavericks wrong. And I think that'll be a motivation of his. The bigger story to me, and listen, I'm not Rich Paul. That goes up saying. Rich Paul is one of the power agents in professional sports. But if I were a part of Clutch Sports and I were consulting LeBron James, because it seems by the day more and more likely like he's going to be a Laker this year, because there have been rumblings. There was an Instagram post with him, Maverick Carter, and Jokic's agent on a boat in an Instagram post, and people like, man, is LeBron going to go to Denver with Jokic and Jamal Murray and these guys? And that was more so a promotional thing for Maverick Carter, and Jokic's agent are creating like some sort of basketball league. I don't really know the details surrounding that, but that's what that was more centered around. Here's what I would tell LeBron James if I had the opportunity. Because if we know one thing about him, for good or for bad, he does care about his image. Which, by the way, don't we all? Doesn't anybody with any level of self-respect care? LeBron and his camp have been scarred by how the decision played out in 2010. There's no question about that. You read any article, book, story, whatever the case may be, on the decision and how that affected LeBron in a negative fashion. He's like, man, I thought we were just doing like an interview with Jim Gray. I thought we were giving money to kids at the Boys and Girls Club. People hate me for this. They're burning my jersey. My home city hates me. That has scarred them and affected a lot of their PR decisions moving forward post-2010. He cares about his image. If he were to, let's just throw out a possibility and say next year he takes the vet minimum to go to Denver, to go to the Knicks, to go to, say there's a contender that rides. Let's say Indiana gets Tyrese Halliburton back and they have LeBron James. Well, that's interesting. Tyrese Halliburton, LeBron James, and Siakam, and that's an interesting team. That team's probably the favorite to win the Eastern Conference. If you were to take the vet minimum and I say I'm going to Houston. Houston doesn't get Giannis. They get LeBron in his farewell tour. Just throwing out contenders where you could see LeBron James fitting. He would get crushed for it. He'd get crushed for it. Man, fake ring. You're chasing Michael. Michael's got the 6 titles. You got 4. You got 6 finals losses, which again, I'm amazed how you can lose in the NBA finals and actually hurts your legacy. We don't do that with Jerry West, who's 1-9 in the finals. We do it to LeBron James, who's 4-6. I don't know. I'm just asking for consistency. I know that's too much to ask sometimes in today's world, but whatever the case may be, I would tell LeBron, okay, unless you want to go back to Cleveland and have a swan song there, which no one would kill him for, you going to find a better teammate than Luka Doncic? You're comfortable in Los Angeles. We know you're going to retire there when you're done, whether that's this year or next year. And oh, by the way, your son plays for the Lakers. And that was one of your stated goals is, man, I want to play with Bronny. Well, Bronny had a pretty good summer league. He's developing, and Bronny's probably going to be in the Lakers next year. Wouldn't it be really cool for LeBron's legacy? And my buddy Barry Grant Jr. talked about this in the All Even podcast. Shout out to Barry. He was the first I heard bring this up, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. What if LeBron is like the Kareem to Luka's Magic? See, folks that don't know, Magic was drafted in 1979 by the Lakers out of Michigan State. Kareem was a was a 5-time MVP before that. Kareem was the best player in basketball. Now, LeBron wasn't the best player in basketball when Luka was traded there, but just follow me. Kareem was the best player in the Lakers. You could argue the first 6 years of Magic's career. Year 6 for Kareem and Magic. Kareem was the finals MVP against the Celtics in 85. From that point forward, Magic was the best player because Kareem's getting older. What if it's a situation where everyone knows Luka's the man, everyone knows it's Luka's franchise, but they turn to number 23 for that leadership? They call Kareem the captain. We turn the cap. Right? Game 6, 1988 final. Yep, 88 finals. Game 6, down 1. Who'd they go to? Not Magic. An old Kareem. Year 19 Kareem. We trust you. Again, it was a bad call. Bill Laimbeer, all of it. But went to the line, sunk both free throws. We relied on him at the end. Wouldn't that be a cool, last wrinkle if the Lakers were to win the title this year? So he was the man in Miami with a duo that on paper actually didn't fit that well. Him and Dwayne Wade. He goes back to Cleveland, wins one of the greatest championships in NBA history, scarred me for life as a Warriors fan, but came back from 3-1 on a 73-win team to win a championship for Cleveland, of all cities. Goes to LA, a franchise that was in the gutter for the previous half decade before that. Wins a very difficult title, regardless of when anyone tries to accuse the bubble of being, that was a discussion last week. Oh, there's not a legit championship. There's an asterisk. Read Bubble Ball. It's a great book by Ben Golliver. Read Bubble Ball and then tell me that's a fake championship. The conditions there were brutal, as it was for most of the country during COVID. It was a tough year for everybody. Wins title there. And then year 23, oldest player in the league, 41. He's all NBA potentially. All-star level guy. And is the number 2 with Luka Doncic on the championship winning team for the Los Angeles Lakers. That, to me, would be more impactful for LeBron's legacy than if he went to a ready-made contender already. Again, I think LeBron's the GOAT. We can have that discussion when he's done, but I do. Boy, that would be a wrinkle in... It's kind of like when Brady won the championship in Tampa, won the title without Belichick, and it was like Brady was already the GOAT, but that just added a whole different level. More championships than any franchise and all of that. That would kind of be what that'd be for LeBron James. Holy crap. Is he still a top 10, top 12 player in the league and the number 2 player on a champion? The mentor for Luka to get into shape, to finally get over the hump and win an MVP and win a championship? Be a nice feather in the cap for the king. I'm just throwing that out there. Now, as a Warriors fan, I'm never going to stop recruiting LeBron James to Golden State. I'll tell you that right now. But it'd be pretty cool. What do we got? Patrick Brown, yes. De'Aaron Fox is staying put with the Spurs, signed extension today. Yeah, four-year deal. Saw that. Listen, I'm a De'Aaron Fox fan. He was a clutch player of the year a couple of years ago. He put a real scare into my Warriors with the Kings in the playoffs 2 years ago. So, and I loved the move, bringing him in to team him up with Wemby. Like the Spurs, we know have such a bright future with what they have there. So good on them for keeping Fox, and good on De'Aaron Fox for staying. I think it's a good deal for him and for the Spurs. Patrick says, Luka's message is clear. Not waiting to win, going for it now. Do whatever is necessary and restore order. Alfred's in the comments. Rumor has it that after news of the Luka extension that Nico was at Outback Steakhouse eating a bloomin' onion with Flag and Kyrie, who had an ice pack on his knee while crying with Mark Cuban. That's brutal. I love the memes that you're seeing, and I feel bad for the people of Dallas, but all the memes you're seeing, like Jerry Jones and Nico Harrison trying to compete for who the worst GM in the city of Dallas, Texas is. It is something to see. Before we go to break, though, in just a minute. I appreciate everybody for tuning in on a Monday. We're getting a lot of engagement in the comments, a lot of viewers, so I appreciate everybody tuning in for the first show back in over a month. I got to say, over the weekend, Major League Baseball history is made. It was the MLB Speedway Classic. I actually have if I can pull this up here. I haven't taken the stickers off, so I apologize for that. But the hat representing the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds. I'm a Red Sox fan, obviously, but never been to a Major League game in my life. Been to multiple NFL games, NBA games, a slew of college games with my beloved Tennessee Vols. Never a Major League Baseball game. first one ever in the history of my home state of Tennessee. They had it at the Bristol Motor Speedway at what was supposed to be Saturday night. So they had a great pregame performance from Tim McGraw. Pitbull was out there for about a minute and a half. They built Pitbull like he was going to be like a major part of the performance, and he just did like a rendition of "I like it, I love it." I mean, it was like one more Pitbull. But shout out to Tim McGraw. The festivities, the way they put the field, on the track or inside the track was remarkable. On the part of Major League Baseball, the pregame introductions with the pit stops, and they, introduced the starting lineups with the players. Both starting pitchers, Strider and Burns, grew up in the state of Tennessee, which was cool and clearly intentional on the part of Brian Snitker with the Braves and my man Tito Francona with the Cincinnati Reds. I got to say though, really cool moment. Quick story. And I think we do have this video. So first of all, I got to be a part of the MLB on Fox pregame show. We weren't able to get one of the videos and how close I was to the set, but my mom actually took this, watching from home, the pregame show.
Walk around and see
right there, a bunch of fans here from the Red Sox. Had my Red Sox hat, David Ortiz jersey on. So that was cool. Got to be on national television for about 5 seconds there. But it was a really cool moment. I was there for the whole show. And with Jeter, A-Rod, Kevin Burkhardt, and my favorite baseball player of all time, David Ortiz. And every time that they would be about to come back from break, so, the producers and everybody who did a phenomenal job at keeping the on-air talent dry from the elements, which, let me tell you, had to have been difficult because it did not stop raining all day, and the game actually ended up getting postponed to yesterday. The Braves won 4-2. But every time the producer would look at the two sets of fans, just be like, okay, come back in 30 seconds. Once we come back, y'all go crazy, cheer, whatever the case may be. That was one of the moments I was on television. And towards the end, right before they were about to film their last segment, before the game was supposed to start, she looked in my direction and she was like, hey, stay there. I'm like, are they going to interview me or something? Because I was the only guy with the Red Sox hat, a David Ortiz jersey. Obviously I knew Poppy was going to be there. So I was like, wanted to support my guy. And once they were done, she walked over. And again, I don't know if it was at the behest of Poppy. I have no idea. They're talking to the producers and everybody nonstop. But I was able to, she gave me this t-shirt, if people could see it. Hold on. Here we go. It's David Ortiz. It says, my dog, which is Poppy's phrase. So that was really cool. So to the producer, shout out to you. Appreciate this a lot. Definitely going to be wearing this on the show moving forward. But yeah, just gave me a free t-shirt for my David Ortiz jersey. That was a really, really cool moment. So shout out to them. Wasn't able to catch much of a baseball game. It was technically, break it down, 2/3 of an inning. The first half of the inning, the Reds ended up getting a run in the bottom of the first. And after that run was scored, I mean, it was puddles in the field. They tried everything they could to play the game. It just didn't work. And then they postponed it to yesterday. I wasn't able to attend, but just the festivities baseball did an unbelievable job. Bristol did an amazing job. I hope they come back. I hope they give it a second go, hopefully involving, listen, you want to really get a sellout crowd. Get a Red Sox-Yankees game at Bristol Motor Speedway. I know regionally it doesn't make sense because, those are Northeast teams. I'm telling you, that'll be fun. Let's see what we got. Some comments from Alfred. He says, LeBron does what 99% of players, past, present, future, can never do, and that's stand up to Father Time as much as possible. All respect, but I have to admit, he exhibits diva-like behavior. And he also says the Speedway Classic was a huge disaster due to the weather. Again, the spectacle itself was not. They did, again, the production, given the weather, was about as good as it could have been. But as far as the game, that was the whole point of the event to begin with, not much. At least for Saturday night. And he said, that's a really nice ad. I appreciate it. But yeah, producer for Fox gave me the David Ortiz shirt. So shout out to her and shout out to my favorite baseball player of all time. That was really cool to, see him up in person. Didn't get to interact with him, but it was cool to get the t-shirt from the crew over there. All right. Be back in just 1 minute to talk about Jalen Hurts. I got to say, the discussion around this player as of late has really bothered me. And I'm not even like a Jalen Hurts stan, but it flies in the face of everything we used to use to evaluate great quarterbacks. Talk about that in just 1 minute on Carvey Up Live. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So obviously training camp is back in the NFL. Preseason is back. The Hall of Fame game was last Thursday between the Lions and Chargers. That was, I got to admit, as a Trey Lance believer back in 2021. I mean, I was sold on Trey Lance. Seeing that performance with him with the LA Chargers was like, man, that's the guy I thought I was going to see in San Francisco, and not quite. He couldn't even beat Sam Darnold out for the backup. Now, Sam Darnold obviously has gone on to have decent amount of success the last couple of years, but I'm like, dang, he can't even be the third string on a team that drafted third overall. Yeah, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. So that hurt. That hurt because I'm like, where has that been this whole time? But yeah, preseason week 1, I think starts this week. So yeah, it'll be fun to see the rookie quarterbacks and some of the guys get out there and perform. We know though during the off season in any sport, particularly during the summer, when, let's be honest, there just isn't as much sports to talk about as there is during the fall and during parts of the spring. And so you got to fill in airspace, understandably so. You got to put something on air. And there's been discussion about Jalen Hurts, quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, the last couple of weeks, that I found jarring. Most of it was started by Cam Newton. Cam Newton, MVP quarterback, very successful in Carolina, got into a Super Bowl 15-1 record, won some playoff games beyond that. But Cam was on his podcast, the 4th and 1 podcast, which is a good show. But he was ranking as top 10 quarterbacks in the league, and Jalen Hurts did not make the top 10. Listen to Cam's explanation for why that is.
It's hard for me to grade Jalen Hurts with the metrics that with the talent that he has around him. Hurts does not have to play elite for the Philadelphia Eagles to win. We're not asking you to win the game. We're just asking you not to lose it. But when you ask that question, are we winning because of you, solely because of you? Or is it the resources around you? So game changer, game manager, those are the things that you have to ask yourself. And those are the metrics that I'm going off of.
I'll be honest. 7 months ago, I probably would have agreed with him. And as someone, Cam, if you think about it from his perspective, the old saying, walk a mile in another man's shoes. If you're looking at it from Cam's perspective, he's got to be thinking, man, at my athletic peak, put me on that Philadelphia team. Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson protecting me. I get to turn around and hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley. When I drop back to pass, I got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Dallas Goedert is a good security blanket. I got an awesome defense backing me up with an unreal defensive tackle and Jalen Carter and 2 great corners and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. And by the way, Zach Bond came out of nowhere last year and best roster in the NFL. It's either them or Baltimore. I would say Philadelphia. Cam's like, give me that roster and see what I would have done. And if you're looking at Cam, you're like, man, that 2015 season in Carolina, Greg Olsen was an excellent tight end, but Devin Funchess, Ted Ginn Jr., not great. The defense was excellent. Offensive line was fine. It wasn't anything to write home about. Certainly not to what this Eagles offensive line is. It's got certainly Lane Johnson's going to be a Hall of Famer. Mailata very well might be as well when it's all said and done. So I get it from Cam's perspective. He looks at guys that, like a Joe Burrow, for example, who is being at, now the receivers Joe Burrow has are incredible, but has to carry a bad defense, plays in a brutal division, all these different things. I get it. And Jalen Hurts' numbers are never going to jump off the stat sheet, except in the biggest games. And here's what I would say to contradict what Cam is saying. There's so much that goes into evaluating quarterback. It's not an exact science. If it was, I mean, maybe Green Bay has mastered it because they've had 3. I mean, obviously, Favre was amazing. Rodgers was even better. And Jordan Love, young, but certainly has shown promise to be an excellent quarterback in the National Football League. Maybe Green Bay's figured it out. Other than that, everybody else, no one knows what they're doing when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. Greatest quarterback ever was the 199th pick in the draft, right? Like Joe Montana, I think it was a 3rd-round pick. Like there's no exact science. Mitch Trubisky was drafted over Patrick Mahomes. But one of the things that goes into it, one of the things I cringe about when it comes to evaluating college quarterbacks is, that guy right there, that's a winner. I'd hope so if he's at Ohio State or Alabama or Georgia. Yeah, I'd hope he's a winner. Stetson Bennett's a winner. He had 5 stars all around him on the field. Like, what are we talking about? it's not so much that the winner argument to me should not be limited to, oh, they just win a bunch of games. What do they do in the biggest games? Don't we get on Dak Prescott for that? By the way, I'm the biggest Dak Prescott fan in the world. Dak has not been his best at times in some of the biggest games. Josh Allen's 0-4 against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. No quarterback ever has been 0-4 against another quarterback in the postseason. Joe Burrow has not made the playoffs the last 2 years. Lamar Jackson hasn't been able to get over the hump as great as he has been in the regular season. The only guy you really don't have any real knocks on, at least among the current guys, is Mahomes. Jalen Hurts has stared him down twice in the biggest game in American team sports, the Super Bowl. Didn't outplay him the first time. Mahomes had his best Super Bowl in that game against Phil. That's the best Super Bowl Mahomes has played, that game against Philadelphia. Jalen was awesome. Matter of fact, we can actually show you his numbers. We can pull that graphic up right here. 304 pass yards, 70 rush yards. So Jalen accounted for 374 total yards, 4 total touchdowns, 1 passing, 3 rushing. QBR 0 to 100 of 80. That's excellent. Pass rating 103. That's really good. His team scored 35 points. He completed 71% of his passes. Jalen was excellent. And in the second Super Bowl 2 years later, you say, well, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, the offensive line, and Saquon Barkley. Okay. Remember the discussion going into that game as to how Kansas City could have a good defensive performance? It's, okay, you got to stop 26. He ran wild in Green Bay. He ran really wild on the Rams. And remember the first play from scrimmage against Washington? Took it to the house. Like, you got to keep Saquon Barkley in check. I've got the stat sheet right here. What did Saquon Barkley do in the Super Bowl? 25 carries for 57 yards, 2 yards a clip. That was the one good thing that Kansas City did do in the Super Bowl. They did stop Saquon Barkley. And Jalen Hurts annihilated them. And we can show you those numbers. If we can pull those up right here. 221 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, completed 77% of his throws, 72 rushing yards with an additional touchdown. QBR 0 to 175, which is really good. 119 pass rating, which is tremendous. And his team scored 40 points. Now, some of that came on a pick 6 by Cooper DeJean, but the Philadelphia scored 40 points and Jalen was just throwing it all over the yard. In the biggest moments, the biggest opportunity, you say, well, Bryson, because that's part of Cam's argument, part of a lot of folks' argument. The roster stacked is the best in the NFL. Fair. Got it. Folks might come back and say, well, why are you so critical of Brock Purdy? First of all, I don't think I'm critical of Brock Purdy. I think I'm real with Brock Purdy. He's a good quarterback, a franchise-level quarterback whose numbers are not equivalent to the player that he is. More representative of the talent he has around him. How do I know that? Jimmy Garoppolo got to a Super Bowl with similar talent and the same coach. Brock Purdy's been good in the playoffs. He had an excellent game against Seattle, was fine against Dallas in 2022. I mean, the Niners scored 19 points. Dak was actually worse. That was a bad game for Dak. The next playoff game against the Packers, he tried every which way he possibly could to lose in that game. Christian McCaffrey won at the end. The Lions, he was excellent in the second half. And Kansas City, he didn't turn the ball over. He was fine. He was nothing to write home about. He was good. He wasn't the reason they lost. That's a game manager. That's what Cam's talking about. Guys who don't screw it up, play within the game plan, don't lose us the game. And I think Joe Burrow is better than Jalen Hurts, for the record. Joe Burrow is, without question, that big 4 quarterbacks. There's no, going into this season, maybe it'll change depending on what Jalen does, Jaden Daniels, whoever else. Maybe Stroud has a big year. Who knows? But I think it is universally agreed on who the 4 best quarterbacks are in any particular order. Holmes, Allen, Lamar, Joe Burrow. Those are, by the way, that's the order I have them. Those are the 4 guys. 5 is up for grabs. For folks to act like Jalen Hurts is not in the discussion is utterly absurd. I've seen him in the biggest spots against the dynasty, who guys like Allen and Lamar have, Allen not so much as Lamar, but have crumbled against. Josh Allen had 2 drives the last couple of playoffs, down 3, ball in his hands, 2 minutes to go tie or win the game, came up empty twice. Lamar Jackson was atrocious in the AFC Championship game against Kansas City, despite the Chiefs' offense pretty much doing nothing the whole game. Joe Burrow's missed the playoffs last 2 years. He had a chance to beat Mahomes on a game-winning drive in the conference title game 2 years ago. Came up short. Jalen led an offense who scored 35 points, forced Mahomes to have the drive of his life to win that game for Kansas City. 2 years later, mopped him in the Super Bowl. So we're just going to ignore that? Yes, the numbers are not eye-popping. Neither was Tom Brady's. Jalen's not Brady, but there's been a lot of guys who've come through the league who have been on quote-unquote stacked rosters, but you can always count on when it's time to get the job done. Couldn't count on Jimmy Garoppolo, couldn't count on Brock Purdy. Purdy, not so much as Jimmy G. Jimmy G's a backup, but we've seen system quarterbacks per se. And part of the reason they're system quarterbacks is that if the system isn't necessarily working the way it should be or that you want it to be. I mean, something else about Jalen. Speaking of systems, what system? He hasn't had Kyle Shanahan or Andy Reid these last 4 years that he's been a starter. He's had 4 different offensive coordinators since becoming the starter with Philadelphia. He's not got a new offensive coordinator this year. Kellen Moore got the Saints job. Year before that, it was a disastrous situation with the Eagles coaching staff on down, particularly the defense. Steichen the 2 years prior to that. Right? Like, it's different changes, different coordinators, different systems. Like, I get the roster is stacked and you have to account for that. I understand. But for folks that he's not that good of a thrower, I don't know. I saw in the Super Bowl, he was pretty darn accurate start to finish. Deep balls, intermediate routes. Kansas City sold out to stop Saquon Barkley. So Hurts did not have a running game. Did not matter. Had the best game of his life. And you'll have similar folks be out there. Oh, man, Justin Herbert. What has Justin Herbert done? Again, I'm not saying winning is everything. I mean, of course, winning is everything as it relates to team sports. I'm not saying that should be, do you have a Super Bowl or not? That should not be, I talk about ring culture. That should not be the end-all, be-all. Talent has to come into the equation. But this guy has played in multiple systems, has not had continuity, heck, even in his college career at Alabama, then at Oklahoma, nor with Philadelphia. Keep in mind, many folks out there have been defending Nick Sirianni like crazy the last few years as an elite coach. He's won a Super Bowl. Kudos to him. Like, I've been a Nick Sirianni critic. He's got a ring. I've said he's an offshoot of Dan Campbell. With hindsight, no one thinks Nick Sirianni is Andy Reid or Kyle Shanahan or either of the Harbaugh brothers or Sean McVay. Shouldn't that be somewhat of a gold star in Jalen Hurts' book? I'm just saying, I hate the conversation of where it's been going the last couple of weeks. Again, maybe it's as simple as they're just trying to fill airspace. I don't know. But I thought this has been ridiculous as of late, personally. I really do. So let's see what we got. Patrick Brown, I can't take a grown man seriously wear skin-tight capris and Sunday dress shoes. Jalen Hurts is him. Already been to 2 Super Bowls and won 1 Super Bowl MVP. Cowboy Up Podcast. Glad you're back, brother. Appreciate that. Patrick, if that's the case, Cam was there, but didn't bring his cape. He'll always be remembered for not jumping on the loose ball. Yes, in the Super Bowl. His lack of self-awareness and immaturity cost him another chance. Jalen didn't act childish upon losing the first time. He took it to heart, made sure Philadelphia didn't lose it again. As a Cowboys fan, got to give him respect and the credit that he deserves. And that's, I'll say this too. And this is where Nick Sirianni deserves credit, because I said after the Super, I have been as critical as anybody to Nick Sirianni, and I still maintain decisions in tight games, don't trust him at all. At all. As evidenced by the Atlanta loss. There was a call he made at the end of the first half against the Rams in a game this year that no one cares about, but looking back, yikes. The one thing I will give Nick Sirianni, his players are focused. They are. I mean, like, if you're noticing what the A.J. Brown, A.J. Brown had a comment the other day. He said, like, I forgot what the exact quote was, but that the Lombardi trophy is not something you're defending. It's something you got to earn every year, or something along those lines. Like, we talk about, oh, the Eagles are the defending champions. The Eagles don't, they're like, no, we won the championship last year, but we're not, that doesn't come into this year. Like, this year is its own year. Very Patriots-like. Very Chiefs-like this sort of, but the next year, Tom Brady, favorite Super Bowl, the next one. That's kind of what I'm seeing. A lot of that is Hurts' leadership, and some credit does go to Nick Sirianni in that regard. I've said he's an offshoot of Dan Campbell. If you like Dan Campbell, I get he's more, Dan is more lovable probably than Nick Sirianni. Like, he's got a great personality, and he's jacked, and he looks like a football player, obviously, because he was, and the Lions were terrible, and now they're good. Dan Campbell's calling card is motivation. Nick Sirianni, you could say the same thing. Still don't trust him in close games, but he's an offshoot of Dan Campbell. But yeah, I hate the discussion that has surrounded Jalen Hurts and how people have tried to frame it as of late. Okay, wanted to transition to a non-sports topic for a few minutes. Occasionally I'll do this. Talk about something regarding culture or even politics if it's relevant. Last year I did some election coverage. Did my best Anderson Cooper impression, I guess. But a story that broke a few weeks ago, and I did want to get a chance to talk about when I came back on the show, was the Stephen Colbert late night show getting canceled. So, and again, it's not, people have, some folks have misconstrued this. Colbert himself is not getting canceled. The Late Show, as a franchise on CBS, is done after this coming May. And so it's going to be canceled. And obviously stems back to CBS came out with a statement and they said, hey, this is financially motivated. And that's not entirely false. It's not. I mean, I'm looking at an article right here from the New York Post that even though Stephen Colbert was the number one late night talk show over Jimmy Fallon, over Jimmy Kimmel, sources indicate that the show was losing a significant amount of money, potentially between $40 million and $50 million annually. That's not so much as, now that's more than Kimmel and Fallon, by the way, just for the record. But late night television, that's the kind of want to hammer on first, and then we'll get to the Colbert part of it and the CBS part of it. But late night television as an industry, it's had an expiration date for some time now. And I say, listen, I say this with no satisfaction. I've never said this on the show before, but when I first decided a few years ago that what I'm doing right now, talking behind a mic, is something that I wanted to do for a living, that was like the absolute apex goal. Late night show host. Like, you know them, you say their name one time, you know who they are. Carson, Letterman, Leno, Kimmel, Colbert. Like, you know that, Stewart, you know the names. And like that was the goal. And that's in short order, that's not going to be a part of our pop culture anymore. And it's unfortunate because it has been for decades upon decades. That's just the podcast industry. Podcast industry has destroyed a lot of entertainment business. It's kind of killed cable television outside of politics in a lot of ways. Like, it just has. But politics, podcasts, it's longer form content. You're not running to commercial breaks. You can curse on podcasts. You can go into deeper conversations, deeper interviews with your guests than you would be able to on a late night or even just a general daytime talk show. Because again, you got ads, like you're running into commercial breaks, you're on a tight schedule, all the things that live TV, has to offer in that regard. And so late night television in and of itself is dying and has been dying probably since COVID. Podcasts, I started my show right before COVID. Podcasts from that point on have just exploded. Because you don't have to stay up till 11:30 at night to watch. You can listen to it on the way to work. You can listen to it during a workout. Like, that's the beauty of podcasting, and that's why it's really become the premier, outside of live sports and live big political events. That's really what people turn to nowadays for their digital entertainment. I mean, streaming the whole bit. And so that in and of itself has killed late night television. Colbert just happens to be the first casualty. But that's not an accident that Colbert is. So I'll say this about Stephen. Obviously, I don't know him. From afar, character-wise, I really admire him. I think, again, from afar, I don't know him. Seems to be a nice guy, very, very intelligent guy. Like, his satire on the Colbert Report, when he was literally playing a character, post Daily Show days with Jon Stewart, he was literally playing a character, kind of like a discount Bill O'Reilly sort of deal on his show. And then he gets his own show on CBS, and it's kind of gets off to a rocky start. You got to realize he's replacing a legend in David Letterman. So that comes with its own pressure. And also it's, okay, I've played somebody who isn't me for so long, for a decade, basically. Okay, I got to be myself now. Not that Colbert couldn't do it. It was just a weird transition for his already existing fan base. And then, like it was for a lot of folks in of the sensibility that Stephen Colbert is, the 2016 election was kind of a blessing for folks like him, where it's, okay, so we're basically the opposition to Trump. And Colbert had the live reaction to Trump winning on Showtime on election night 2016. And that kind of, the next show he did, from that point on, he's pretty much been the number one late night show host over Kimmel and Fallon since then. Because it's the current climate where politics is number one in a lot of folks' eyes in the entertainment space outside of sports has played to his strengths and to his sensibilities and his everything he's good at. But because of the diminishment of the late night industry in and of itself, it has hurt his show. It has hurt his ratings. It's hurt everybody's show in that regard. What you cannot say, and CBS has tried to cover for this, and this is kind of the part that I really wanted to make sure gets out there, is that, they had the $16 million settlement with CBS and 60 Minutes for how they edited the Kamala Harris interview during the campaign. And I mean, if you look into that, it's like, the CBS doesn't look the greatest there. And Trump sued them. And, rather than standing by their journalist, they decide to cave financially to Trump. And obviously, there's a sale going on with CBS parent company, Paramount CBS, that involves Trump. He has to approve it and all of those things. It's not a coincidence that 3 days prior to the late night show getting canceled, Colbert rips CBS, rips Paramount for the settlement with Trump. Colbert obviously is no fan of the president. It goes to show that, and we've known this, at least I've known this for years when it comes to the current administration, the current president, to be more specific. Obviously, he's a man who cares about loyalty. Obviously, he's a man who is, he's got his MAGA base. He's got his MAGA backers in the Senate, in the House, and to a degree, even in the Supreme Court, and all of these different things. What is, to me, amazing that big corporations seem to not understand about this man, that's so apparently obvious. There's no level of capitulation that is good enough for him. None. I saw the other day, Senator from Missouri, Josh Hawley, about as MAGA Republican as it gets. I mean, he is like, he's been one of the OG Trump supporters in the Senate. Votes along with the Democrats on a bill that would restrict, stock trading in advance by the Senate. I'm reading this article from CNN right now, have it pulled up, that folks from both sides of the aisle have said, hey, they're trying to ensure members of Congress and senators who are here for public service cannot enrich themselves, investing in stocks, to ban stock trading. Trump ripped Josh Hawley. One infraction. And this is what I get really irritated, and especially during the campaign. I know Robert F. Kennedy Jr. brought this up, that Trump is a defender of free speech. Two things can be true. The left's recent track record with free speech isn't great. When you see how comedians have been treated, not so much recently, but in years past, the Dave Chappelle's of the world, like, again, and I'm not saying I even agree with all of Chappelle's jokes related to the trans community and whatever the case may be, but he does have the right to say what he says in joke fashion. By the way, I think that's the job of comedians, is to rip everybody. You laugh when it's somebody else, somebody you don't like, but now it's a problem if it's you or somebody you do like. Okay, fine. Track record hasn't been great in the left when it comes to free speech. Trump's the model. Donald Trump, the same guy who, again, Josh Hawley's a prime example. You come out against this guy once, rips you to shreds on Truth Social. I mean, he called a Hawley like a second-rate senator, which is mild for Donald Trump. Like that is nothing compared to some of the insults he has levied out against. I mean, the man called said that Ted Cruz, when he was running against him in 2016, said that, Ted Cruz was, his dad was involved in the JFK assassination and, attacked Ted Cruz's wife, and Ted Cruz still backs him, and it's never enough. It's never enough. So when you see these big corporations caving to him in the way that they are, and again, Colbert show, unfortunately, like Kimmel show, like Fallon show, like the late night industry as a whole, has an expiration date, and it's coming soon because, in large part, due to the podcast industry. Late night's been dying for some time now. The fact that Stephen was the first major casualty was not an accident. Was intentional on the part of this president and this administration. He will defend free speech if it's supporting him. Come against him one time. I mean, shoot, they didn't come against him. They had nothing to do with him. NFL players kneel during the national anthem, regardless of your feelings on it. They certainly have the right to do that. That's their First Amendment right. Trump calls them SOBs. Says they need to be fired. Exercising their First Amendment right. SOBs. Interesting. So, says he's not going to fund, a new stadium for the Washington Commanders if they don't go back to the old team name that involves, I don't know, a racial slur. That's your defender of free speech? Trump is a lot of things. A defender of the First Amendment is not one of them. And so, listen, I hate it for Stephen. Stephen's personal story is inspiring. The fact that he lost his father and two brothers in a plane crash early on. He had a great segment years ago with Anderson Cooper. I think it was after Anderson Cooper's mother, Gloria Vanderbilt, passed away, about grief and learning to love the thing that you miss the most, learning to love the thing that you lost. And like Stephen is a deep, intellectual, really, really smart guy. And so I hate that he was, nothing against Kimmel and Fallon, but I do hate that Stephen was kind of the first one to go. I hate that the late night show in of itself, with David Letterman before that, and obviously Johnny Carson. Like, I hate that that's coming to an end as someone who enjoys late night television, has my whole life. But folks acting as if this has nothing to do with the president's own insecurities are lying to themselves. He has the thinnest skin of any leader that office has had. We have not had somebody attack the First Amendment outside of John Adams and Woodrow Wilson ever in American history in the executive branch. Come after him one time. He is coming for your neck. So that's who he is. What do we got? Patrick, late night comedy is the relief we need to get to this atrocious state of our country. Jimmy Kimmel's my guy. Can't wait for him to get back to his monologues. And Alfred says Colbert got a raw deal. Trump is so inept that he is bringing back the presidential fitness test schools and hired Lawrence Taylor, who said in the press conference, I don't know what we're supposed to be doing. I saw that. And I also saw, by the way, that Saquon Barkley was mentioned among athletes Trump wanted to be a part of this. And Saquon declined. He's like, I don't even know why he brought my name up. Now, Saquon did go golfing with the president months before that. So I don't know what that situation is. And yeah, to Alfred's point, mind you, Taylor is also a registered sex offender, and he wants him working with schools with kids. Go figure, Alfred. Trump's history in that arena is not the best either, but for legal reasons, we won't go further than that. But yeah, he's a walking hypocrisy. He's a walking hypocrisy in every way, shape, and form. He's the anti-war president, and you see what's going on in the Middle East. He's the pro-First Amendment president, yet he attacks anybody and says they should lose their. ABC. Remember during the debate, after the debate, when Kamala wiped the floor with him, and he's saying ABC should lose their news organization's license and all these different things. Anytime Fox News, which has been a Trump, the mouthpiece for the MAGA agenda, they question anything he does. He comes after their heads. That's who he is. And so it's never good enough for him. Like, that's what these corporations are going to have to figure out. Like, you're never going to please him. His ego, his fragility knows no bounds. So don't forget that. He's the he's the working class president, and we see what the big beautiful bill has done and the terror. Like, he's yeah. I think his approval rating thus far in his administration kind of speaks for itself. He's not terribly good at his job. Anyways, take a 1 minute break, and then we'll be back with one last segment to talk about the Hall of Fame, because when you look at the 2026 potential class, it's loaded. Talk about that in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Just real quick, one last thing, and because I just saw this, because we know that, again, when it comes to beefs with people, Trump puts Kendrick Lamar and Drake to shame. I mean, he's mad at somebody new every day. Right now, it's Charlamagne the God, the host of the Breakfast Club, which is great show, and it's funny, he mentioned that how could Charlamagne include the word God in his name? Can you imagine if I call myself God? And then I saw the clip of Trump from his first term. He looks at the sky, says, "I am the chosen one." Anyways, I could do a whole podcast. I've said many times on my show that, I'm a Christian and very proud of it. And I could do a whole series on how this man has manipulated the Christian community into believing that he's God's man, like he was chosen by the Almighty to be on this planet at the same time as us and to save this country because he and he alone can save us. That's a weak country if only he can save us, and it's not a country I happen to believe exists. But a lot of the issues he talks about does exist in his imagination, to be fair. All right, so Hall of Fame inductions were this weekend. Really good stuff. I will say, the Jared Allen speech was really good. Jared Allen, but a very deserving Hall of Famer. Sterling Sharp, long overdue to get in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, a lot of his, the fact that it took him so long to get in is because he didn't play that long because he had a career-ending injury. His brother Shannon went on to be one of the greatest tight ends of all time. They're the first brothers to be inducted into the Hall of Fame together. And Sterling's speech, where at one point he said, "I was playing for an audience of one," and he's referring to Shannon. Like, it was such a touching moment. And the whole induction ceremony, as it always is, was fantastic. But the 2026 class is coming up, and it's loaded. So to go over, the NFL posted on their social media the names that would be up, and I'll obviously won't go through some of these one by one because obviously a lot of these guys, they're not going in the Hall of Fame. Sean Lee is not going in the Hall of Fame. Good player, by the way. But so here are the names: Larry Fitzgerald, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Jason Witten, Frank Gore, Julian Edelman, Marquise Pouncey, Shady McCoy, Thomas Davis, Greg Olson, Alex Smith, Des Bryant, Steven Gostowski. Can't believe they mentioned a kicker. Geno Atkins, David DeCastro, Mike Pouncey, Sean Lee, Todd Gurley, and Jarrell Casey. So obviously the names at the top of the list you imagine are who are going to be most discussed as we go into this process. So Drew Brees is a no questions asked like that. I remember they spent, I read that when Peyton Manning was up for the Hall of Fame, they spoke for like 10 seconds. The committee took 10 seconds to decide whether Peyton Manning was a Hall of Famer. Drew Brees isn't Peyton Manning all time in the ranks. I do think Drew is a top 10 all-time quarterback. Peyton is on my Mount Rushmore personally. But I mean, you look at Drew Brees, he's second in everything: pass yards, pass touchdowns, and completions to Tom Brady. And he's the all-time leader in terms of seasons leading the league in passing with 7. That's an all-time NFL record. Not to mention he's probably the most accurate passer in the history of the game. So, I mean, he's third all-time in completion percentage, I think, behind Tua and Burrow. You got to keep in consideration, though, a big portion of Brees' careers The middle linebacker was a much bigger part of the game than it is today, with the fact you can't hit receivers the way that you used to. So Brees had to be even more accurate. Brady has talked about this. Brees had to be even more accurate, obviously, with some of his physical limitations. So Drew's a no doubt Hall of Famer. That won't even be a discussion. Larry Fitzgerald, same case. Like this should be a 15-second discussion. Larry Fitzgerald, he's going to Canton. Okay, he's the famous stat with Fitz is more tackles than dropped passes, which is unbelievable. But 11 Pro Bowls, 2-time leader in catches, 2-time leader in touchdowns. He's second all-time in receptions and yards to the greatest receiver of all time, Jerry Rice. Fitz is in the Hall of Fame, no questions asked. Not to mention he played with quite a lot of quarterbacks. So that's something else too. Where it gets a little dicey is Phillip Rivers. So Phillip Rivers all time is like in the top 10, all the major categories. Like you think about yards and touchdown, like Phillip is in those discussions. And this is why I struggle with Eli Manning. Because listen, if you asked me to pick one or the other to go in the Hall of Fame, you'd go Eli Manning because he's a 2-time champion and beat the greatest quarterback ever twice in the Super Bowl. The problem with Eli is he had stretches, particularly at the beginning and at the end of his career, where he was a bad quarterback. In the middle, he was a very good quarterback. In the 2 postseason runs in 2007 and 2011, he was a A+ quarterback. And so that's what makes it tough. And again, the name recognition, he's a Manning, all of those things. I said last year, I'm totally fine if Eli gets in the Hall of Fame, not losing a second of sleep. I don't want him to be a first ballot. Like first ballot are reserved for the no doubters. Drew Brees, no doubt. Larry Fitzgerald, no doubt. You know, you think about obviously Brady, but Peyton Manning, no doubt. Deion Sanders, the no doubt guys. Eli's not in that class. Matter of fact, I wouldn't be mad if he doesn't get in this year. If he gets in 2027, totally cool with that. So Phillip's numbers say he should be, but I would contend name the iconic Phillip Rivers moment. A Chargers fan would probably say that time he played in the AFC Championship game in 2007 with the torn ACL, it was a valiant effort. You give him major credit. Phillip was as tough as nails. We know that. If he gets in, I won't have an issue with it. He should not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like that would be an issue. Here's the one I'm even more so should not be in. First ballot. Frank Gore. Frank Gore is mentioned on this list. Frank Gore, top 5 all-time in rushing yards. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler. He never led the league in rushing. That is the classic. We've seen guys like this in Major League Baseball. A stat accumulator. Not saying Frank Gore is a stat patter. I'm saying, to his credit, played a long time. Never once was he even in the discussion for best running back in the NFL. Like that's kind of the conversation with Phillip Rivers and with Eli Manning. Like never once did we think Eli Manning or Phillip Rivers was the best player at their position ever. We didn't really think that with Brees either, but there were seasons in which you could argue, yeah, Drew had the best season. Fitzgerald, there were times you could make a case he was the best receiver, or he certainly had the best season of wide receivers. It's, by the way, why, and listen, I'll admit there might very well be some bias involved in this, so I will just throw this out there. I think Jason Witten's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Here's why I say that. Because folks may not know this. Jason Witten grew up about 30, 45 minutes from where I live. So, and I met Jason Witten at a football camp back in 2018. I've been the previous 2 years. I went in 2018, which was the last one he did in his hometown. Class personified. Like, Jason Witten is an A+ human being. Is a high school coach now, by the way, in Texas. Jason Witten, I've got the resume written down here on my phone. I think I'll pull this up here. Here we go. Did you know that Jason Witten, 11-time Pro Bowler, 4th most catches in NFL history? 4th. Behind Rice, Fitzgerald, and I think after that it's Tony Gonzalez. Jason Witten after that. Even more impressive. 4 tight ends in NFL history have 10,000 career receiving yards. The other 3, 2 of them are already in the Hall of Fame. 1 got in this weekend, and 1 is absolutely going to get in the Hall of Fame. Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, who just got enshrined this weekend, Travis Kelce, who obviously will be a Hall of Famer when he's eligible 5 years after his retirement, and Jason Witten. Iron Man, great blocker, numbers were there, longevity, all of it. Again, are we going to knock him for not having a lot of great moments in the postseason because the Cowboys are, well, the Cowboys? Brees and Fitzgerald, no questions asked, their first ballot. I would vote Witten in as well. I would have I would not vote Phillip Rivers and Frank Gore in the first ballot. No way on planet Earth I'm doing that. I'm not sure I'd vote them in on the second ballot either. I mean, if DeMarcus Ware had to wait multiple years, if Shannon Sharp, Michael Strahan, T.O. had to wait multiple years to get in, these are icons of the game that did not get in on the first ballot. Champion, all of it. Guys who were in the discussion or at some point were the best players at their position. Phillip Rivers never once was or was in discussion of being. Neither was Frank Gore. Jason Witten was. Larry Fitzgerald was. Drew Brees was. That's why I struggle. This is the last one I'll mention, and then we'll get out of here. The one I have real trouble with is Julian Edelman. Now, first of all, I want to say this. Julian Edelman has, among player podcasts, one of my favorites out there. Games with Names, great show. Shout out to Julian Edelman, who's done a great job as a broadcaster and analyst of the game. Julian Edelman never made a Pro Bowl. He's a 3-time champion, caught the game-winning touchdown in Super Bowl 49, had the iconic catch, the circus catch against Atlanta, Super Bowl 51, and then was the MVP of Super Bowl 53. So in all of his, outside of, I guess, the loss to the Giants in 2011, but he was a young player. He wasn't a part of the offense. He wasn't playing Wes Welker's role. But Julian Edelman, let's put it this way, because his numbers aren't quite what Welker's was. If you want to say Julian Edelman is Wes Welker with championships and with hardware Super Bowl MVP, if you think that's a Hall of Famer, okay. He's certainly a Patriots Hall of Famer. That goes without saying. You can make a case. Actually, not only can you make a case, this is the case. He was not the best pass catcher on his own team at his peak, much less in the league. That was Gronk, obviously. Gronk was the go-to guy in New England for that portion of the Patriots dynasty. Edelman was as clutch as they got. You could rely on Julian Edelman on a big third down. You could rely on him to make the catch of catches in that game against Atlanta and to come up big in a low-scoring affair with the Rams. Never dominant. And some of that's a size thing, some of that's the Patriots scheme, some of it, he did not make a single Pro Bowl. It's hard for me to give that guy a bust in Canton. And I love Julian. I think he is, again, great podcaster, great teammate in New England. I can't put him in. I'll listen to Gore and Phillip Rivers. I can't put Edelman in. And as for Brees, Fitzgerald, Witten, I'd put them in on the first ballot. That's how I would vote. But we'll see what the voters decide to do in 2026. But it'll be fun. It'll be a really interesting discussion come, I guess, February when they announce the new Hall of Fame class, because there'll definitely be some contention on some of those names on that list. There's no question about it. All right. Great to be back. That is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube and on Twitter, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to catch the Grid Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find my show, Carving It Up, as well as our other amazing content creators on the Grid Network. Great to be back. It's been a month and a half off. Take some time to take a breather and just get right back in the mix of things. It felt so great. Thanks so much for everyone who engaged in the comment section. Thanks to everyone who tuned in, who liked, who shared, who commented. Please tell your friend to tell a friend about the show. Let's get the subscriber numbers up. Let's grow the show as we go into this new football season. Cannot wait. Very excited to be back. I'll see y'all on Wednesday at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. And thanks for the t-shirt, Fox. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. And be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.